The desert sun had barely crested the horizon when Nathan Sullivan spotted the broken-down stagecoach tilting awkwardly on three wheels. A woman in white standing beside it, looking more lost than any soul he had ever seen. He pulled his horse to a stop, dust settling around them as he took in the scene before him. The stagecoach was clearly beyond immediate repair, its fourth wheel lying several feet away with broken spokes scattered across the hard, packed earth. The woman turned toward him, and even through the grime of travel, he could see the desperation in her eyes. Her wedding dress, though dusty and torn at the hem, still held enough of its original elegance to tell him everything he needed to know about where she had been heading. "Madam," Nathan called out, tipping his hat as he dismounted. "Looks like you have found yourself in a considerable predicament." She stepped forward, her hands clutching at the fabric of her skirts. "My driver," she said, her voice strained with worry. "He rode one of the coach horses to Hachita for help. That was yesterday morning. I have been waiting here ever since." Nathan felt his jaw tighten. Yesterday morning meant she had spent a full day and night out here alone in the New Mexico Territory desert. It was April of 1883, and while the days were bearable, the nights still carried a chill that could work its way into a person's bones. He looked past her at the stagecoach, noting the trunk still strapped to the top and the complete absence of anyone else. "You are saying you have been out here alone for more than 24 hours?" he asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it confirmed. "Yes," she replied, lifting her chin despite the tremor in her voice. "I did not know what else to do. I could not leave my belongings, and I certainly could not walk to town in this dress." Nathan surveyed the landscape around them. They were a good 15 miles from Hachita, the nearest town of any size. The road was well traveled enough during the day, but clearly, no one else had come by since her driver left. He wondered briefly what had happened to the man, but pushed that concern aside for the more immediate problem standing before him. "What is your name, madam?" he asked, stepping closer but maintaining a respectful distance. "Katherine," she said. "Katherine Thompson. I was traveling to meet my intended husband in Silver City. We were to be married there this Saturday." Nathan did some quick mental calculations. Today was Thursday. Silver City was another 30 miles beyond Hachita, which meant even if everything went smoothly from here, she would be cutting it extremely close. He looked at his horse, a strong bay mare named Rosie, who had been his faithful companion for the past 3 years. Then he looked back at Katherine Thompson, at the sunburn starting to show on her fair skin and the way she swayed slightly on her feet. "When did you last have water?" he asked. Katherine gestured weakly toward the stagecoach. "I had a canteen, but it ran out this morning. I have been trying to stay in the shade, but there is so little of it." Nathan immediately pulled his own canteen from his saddle and brought it to her. "Drink," he said. "Not too fast, though. Small sips." She took it with trembling hands and drank as he had instructed, clearly fighting the urge to gulp it all down at once. While she drank, Nathan walked around the stagecoach, examining it more thoroughly. The axle was cracked in addition to the broken wheel. Even if they had the parts, repairing it out here would take hours, possibly days. He checked inside the coach and found it empty except for a small carpet bag. "Is that all you have?" he asked, pointing to the bag. Katherine lowered the canteen and shook her head. "No, I have 2 trunks up top with my trousseau and other belongings. Everything I own is in those trunks." Nathan climbed up and examined the trunks. They were substantial pieces, well made but heavy. Together, they would weigh more than Katherine herself. He jumped back down and stood before her, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair as he considered their options. The way Nathan saw it, they had 3 choices. He could ride to Hachita, send back help, and leave Katherine here for potentially several more hours. He could put her on his horse and walk alongside, leading them both to town, which would take the better part of the day. Or he could give her his horse and trust her to make it to Hachita while he waited here with the stagecoach. The first option meant leaving her alone again, and he could not bring himself to do that after she had already endured so much. The second option was better but still risky. Rosie was strong, but carrying two people's weight in this heat, even if he was walking, would be hard on her. The third option meant sacrificing his own immediate safety and comfort for hers, but it was the only one that guaranteed she would reach town safely and quickly. "Miss Thompson," he said, meeting her eyes directly, "I am going to give you my horse. She will carry you to Hachita without any trouble. Once you arrive, you can send someone back for me and your belongings." Katherine stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "You would give me your horse, but what about you? You cannot simply stay out here." "I have water. I have supplies in my saddlebags, and I can take shelter in the stagecoach," Nathan replied. "You need to get to town, and more importantly, you need to get medical attention. You are showing signs of heat exhaustion, and another day out here could turn serious." "But I am a complete stranger to you," Katherine protested, even as her eyes showed how desperately she wanted to accept his offer. "Why would you sacrifice your own welfare for someone you do not even know?" Nathan settled his hat back on his head and allowed himself a small smile. "Because it is the right thing to do, Miss Thompson. And because I have a feeling you would do the same if our situations were reversed." Katherine looked at him for a long moment, her blue eyes searching his face as if trying to memorize every feature. Then, to his surprise, tears began to stream down her cheeks. "You are sacrificing so much for a stranger," she whispered. "I do not even know how to thank you." "No thanks needed," Nathan said firmly. "Just promise me you will ride straight to Hachita and send help back as soon as you can." "Can you ride?" Katherine nodded, wiping at her tears. "Yes, my father taught me when I was young. I can manage." Nathan brought Rosie over and adjusted the stirrups for Katherine's shorter legs. He helped her mount, his hands careful and respectful as he steadied her in the saddle. Once she was settled, he pulled his rifle from its scabbard and handed it up to her. "You know how to use this?" he asked. "Yes," Katherine said, taking it with more confidence than she had shown before. "My father believed women should know how to protect themselves." "Smart man," Nathan said approvingly. He pointed north along the road. "Follow this road straight. You should see Hachita within 3 hours, maybe less if Rosie keeps a good pace. There is a doctor named Harris on the main street. Go to him first." Katherine gathered the reins in one hand, the rifle balanced across her lap. She looked down at Nathan, and something in her expression shifted, became more determined. "I will send help immediately," she promised. "I swear it." "I believe you," Nathan said, and he did. Despite having just met her, he found himself trusting Katherine Thompson completely. She turned Rosie north and urged her into a steady trot. Nathan watched until they disappeared from view, then turned back to survey his temporary home. He retrieved his saddlebags from where he had placed them on the ground and carried them to the stagecoach. Climbing inside, he found it was indeed cooler than standing in the direct sun. He rationed a small drink from his canteen and settled in to wait. The hours passed slowly. Nathan dozed intermittently, waking whenever he heard a sound that might signal approaching help. He thought about Katherine Thompson and the man waiting for her in Silver City. He wondered what kind of man would arrange to marry a woman without going to meet her himself, without ensuring her safe passage. The thought left a sour taste in his mouth, though he acknowledged he did not know the full circumstances. It was late afternoon, the sun beginning its descent toward the western horizon, when Nathan finally heard the sound of horses and wagon wheels. He climbed out of the stagecoach and shielded his eyes against the glare. A wagon was approaching with 3 men on horseback escorting it. As they drew closer, Nathan recognized Rosie among the horses and felt a surge of relief. The wagon pulled to a stop, and Katherine dismounted from Rosie before anyone could help her down. She ran toward Nathan, her borrowed riding skirt catching on the brush but not slowing her progress. "Mr. Sullivan," she called out, and Nathan realized he must have told her his name, though he could not recall when. "Miss Thompson," he greeted her. "I see you made it safely." "Thanks to you and your wonderful horse," Katherine said, slightly breathless. She gestured to the men behind her. "This is Sheriff Daniels, and these are his deputies. They have come to help transport the stagecoach back to town." Sheriff Daniels was a weathered man in his 50s with sharp eyes that took in the scene quickly. "Mr. Sullivan," he said with a nod. "Miss Thompson here has told us about your generosity. That was a noble thing you did." Nathan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Anyone would have done the same." "That is where you are wrong," the sheriff said. "Not many men would give up their horse for a stranger, especially not in country like this. You took a real risk." While they talked, the 2 deputies were examining the stagecoach and beginning to unload Katherine's trunks onto the wagon. Katherine herself retrieved a large bag from the wagon and brought it to Nathan. "I brought you some food and fresh water," she said. "I thought you must be hungry." Nathan accepted the bag gratefully. Inside, he found bread, cheese, dried meat, and 2 full canteens. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "This is very thoughtful." "It is the least I could do," Katherine replied. She hesitated, then added, "Mr. Sullivan, I must get to Silver City as quickly as possible. My wedding is in 2 days, and I am already behind schedule. But I cannot leave without properly thanking you and ensuring you are safely back in Hatchita." "I will be fine, Miss Thompson," Nathan assured her. "You go on to Silver City. Your intended is probably worried sick about you." A strange expression crossed Katherine's face, something Nathan could not quite read. Before he could ask about it, Sheriff Daniels called out, "Miss Thompson, if you want to catch the evening stage to Silver City, we need to head back now. It leaves in 2 hours." Katherine turned back to Nathan, her eyes earnest. "Will you come to Hatchita, please? I would feel much better knowing you made it back safely." "I will ride back once the deputies have the stagecoach ready to tow," Nathan agreed. "You have my word." Katherine nodded but still seemed reluctant to leave. Finally, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small lace handkerchief. "This belonged to my mother," she said, pressing it into Nathan's hand. "I want you to have it as a token of my gratitude." Nathan tried to refuse, but Katherine closed his fingers around the delicate fabric. "Please," she said softly. "It would mean a great deal to me." He relented, tucking the handkerchief carefully into his vest pocket. Katherine smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her tired face into something beautiful. Then she allowed Sheriff Daniels to help her onto the wagon, and they began the journey back to Hatchita. Nathan watched them go, feeling an unexpected emptiness as Katherine disappeared from view for the 2nd time that day. He pushed the feeling aside and turned to help the deputies with the stagecoach. It took them another hour to rig it properly for towing, but eventually they were ready. Nathan mounted Rosie, grateful to be reunited with his faithful horse, and they made their way toward Hatchita as the sun set behind them. They arrived in town well after dark. Hatchita was not large, but it was bustling with activity despite the late hour. Lanterns lit the main street, and Nathan could hear music coming from one of the saloons. The deputies headed toward the livery stable with the damaged stagecoach, while Nathan rode to the sheriff's office, as Sheriff Daniels had requested. Inside, he found the sheriff writing up a report. "Mr. Sullivan," Daniels said, looking up. "Good, you made it back. I wanted to speak with you before you left town." Nathan removed his hat and took the chair the sheriff offered. "What about Miss Thompson's driver?" Daniels said grimly. "We found him about 5 miles north of where you encountered her stagecoach. He had been thrown from his horse and broke his neck. Been dead since shortly after he left Miss Thompson." Nathan felt a chill run through him. So she was out there completely alone and no help was coming. "That is right," Daniels confirmed. "If you had not happened along when you did, well, I do not want to think about what might have happened to her. This desert does not forgive mistakes or bad luck." They sat in silence for a moment, both contemplating the grim alternative timeline. Finally, Nathan asked, "Did you tell Miss Thompson about her driver?" "I did," Daniels said. "She took it hard, felt guilty even though there was nothing she could have done. But she seemed determined to continue on to Silver City. Said her intended was expecting her, and the wedding was already planned." The sheriff paused, giving Nathan a meaningful look. "Though between you and me, she did not seem particularly excited about it." Nathan remembered the strange expression that had crossed Catherine's face when she mentioned her wedding. "Maybe she is just tired and stressed from the ordeal," he suggested, though even to his own ears it sounded weak. "Maybe," Daniels agreed, but his tone suggested he thought otherwise. "In any case, I wanted to thank you properly for what you did. You are welcome to a free meal at the hotel restaurant and a room for the night, courtesy of the town council. It is the least we can do." Nathan accepted the offer gratefully. The sheriff directed him to the Hachita Hotel, a modest 2-story building at the end of the main street. The proprietor, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Chen, showed him to a clean room and promised to have dinner sent up. After washing away the dust and grime of the past 2 days, Nathan sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Catherine's handkerchief from his pocket. It was delicate work, the edges decorated with intricate lace patterns. He traced the embroidery with one finger, wondering about the woman who had carried it and the mother she had lost. Then he carefully folded it and placed it in his saddlebag for safekeeping. The next morning, Nathan woke early and found himself drawn to the main street. He told himself he was just getting a sense of the town, maybe looking for work in the area, but in truth, he was hoping to catch a glimpse of Katherine before she left for Silver City. The stage was scheduled to depart at 8 o'clock, and he positioned himself near the general store where he could watch without being obvious. Sure enough, at 7:45, Katherine emerged from the hotel with her 2 trunks being carried by a porter. She wore a simple traveling dress now, dark blue cotton that was practical for the journey ahead. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she looked considerably better than she had the previous day, though Nathan could still see the exhaustion in the set of her shoulders. She was scanning the street, clearly looking for someone, and when her eyes landed on Nathan, her whole face lit up. She walked directly to him, her escort of a hotel employee struggling to keep up with the trunks. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, slightly breathless. "I was hoping I would see you before I left. Did you get a room at the hotel?" "I did," Nathan confirmed. "The sheriff was very generous. How are you feeling this morning?" "Much better, thank you," Katherine replied. "Dr. Harris examined me yesterday evening. He said I was dehydrated and had some minor sunburn, but nothing that would not heal quickly. He gave me some salve and instructions to drink plenty of water." "Good," Nathan said, genuinely relieved. "I am glad you are recovering." Katherine bit her lip, a gesture Nathan was beginning to recognize as something she did when she was nervous or uncertain. "Mr. Sullivan, I know I already thanked you, but I need you to understand how much what you did meant to me." You sacrificed your own safety and comfort for a complete stranger. That is not something I will ever forget. You already thanked me, Miss Thompson, Nathan said gently. And you gave me your mother's handkerchief, which is more than enough. No, it is not enough, Katherine insisted. Her blue eyes were intense as they looked up at him. When I was sitting out there in the desert, waiting and hoping someone would come, I started to think about my life and the choices I have made. And then you appeared, like an answer to a prayer I did not know I was praying. You showed me that there are still good men in this world, men who do the right thing not because they expect something in return, but simply because it is right. Nathan felt heat rise to his face at her words. I think you may be giving me too much credit, madam. I do not think I am giving you enough, Katherine countered. She reached out and touched his arm briefly, a gesture that seemed to surprise them both. I need to go. The stage will be leaving soon, but Mr. Sullivan, if you are ever in Silver City, please come find me. I would like to repay your kindness somehow. Nathan nodded, though they both knew he was unlikely to take her up on the offer. She was about to be a married woman, and it would not be appropriate for him to call on her. Still, he appreciated the sentiment. Katherine seemed to sense his thoughts because her expression became sad. Goodbye, Mr. Sullivan. I hope life treats you as kindly as you have treated me. Goodbye, Miss Thompson, Nathan replied. I hope you have a very happy marriage. She flinched slightly at his words, then turned and walked toward the waiting stagecoach. Nathan watched as she was helped aboard and her trunks were loaded. The driver cracked his whip, and the stage lurched into motion. Katherine looked out the window, her eyes finding Nathan's one last time, and then she was gone. Nathan stood there for several long minutes after the stage disappeared from view. He felt a strange hollowness in his chest, a sense of loss that made no logical sense. He had known Katherine Thompson for less than a day. She was engaged to be married to another man. Yet something about her had touched him deeply, had made him feel more alive than he had in years. Shaking his head at his own foolishness, Nathan turned away and headed for the livery stable to check on Rosie. He needed to get back on the trail, back to his life. There was no point in dwelling on a woman he would never see again. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Nathan spent the next 2 days in Hachita, taking on some work at a nearby ranch to earn a bit of money before moving on. It was late afternoon on Saturday when he rode back into town to collect his pay and was met with an unexpected sight. A stagecoach, the same one that should have been carrying Katherine to her wedding, was parked outside the sheriff's office. And standing next to it, arguing with a well-dressed man Nathan did not recognize, was Katherine herself. Nathan dismounted and tied Rosie to the hitching post, moving close enough to hear the conversation. "You are being completely unreasonable, Katherine," the well-dressed man was saying. His voice was sharp and condescending. "We have an agreement. Your father and I arranged this marriage months ago." "My father is dead," Katherine replied, her voice steady but tight with anger. "And I am not a piece of property to be transferred from one owner to another. I told you in Silver City that I cannot marry you, Leonard, and I meant it." So this was Leonard, Nathan realized. Katherine's intended husband. He was a handsome man in his early 30s, with carefully groomed blonde hair and expensive clothes. He looked every inch the successful businessman, but there was something cold in his eyes that Nathan instinctively distrusted. "You are making a terrible mistake," Leonard said, his tone shifting from anger to something that might have been meant as persuasion. "I can give you everything you need. A fine house, security, a place in society. What more could you want?" "I want to make my own choices," Katherine said firmly. "I want to marry for love, not convenience. And I do not love you, Leonard. I thought I could learn to, but after everything that has happened, I realize I cannot. Leonard's face darkened. If you walk away from this engagement, you will have nothing. Your father's debts die with him, but so does any claim you have to his estate. You will be alone and penniless. Then I will be alone and penniless, Katherine said, lifting her chin in that stubborn gesture Nathan remembered. But I will be free. Nathan had heard enough. He stepped forward, his presence immediately drawing both their attention. "Miss Thompson," he said politely, "I hope I am not interrupting." Katherine's eyes went wide with surprise, then filled with something that looked like relief. "Mr. Sullivan," she breathed, "what are you doing here?" "I have been working nearby," Nathan explained. He turned to Leonard and extended his hand. "Nathan Sullivan. I helped Miss Thompson when her stage coach broke down earlier this week." Leonard ignored the offered hand, his eyes narrowing as he looked Nathan up and down. "I know who you are," he said dismissively. "Katherine mentioned you, the cowboy who gave her his horse. Very noble, I am sure, but this is a private conversation." "It stopped being private when you raised your voice to the lady in the middle of the street," Nathan said calmly. He turned back to Katherine. "Miss Thompson, is this man bothering you?" "I am her fiancé," Leonard snapped before Katherine could answer. "I have every right to speak with her." "Former fiancé," Katherine corrected. "As I have told you repeatedly, Leonard, the engagement is over." "I am not going to marry you." Leonard took a step toward Katherine, his hand reaching out as if to grab her arm. Nathan moved faster, positioning himself between them. "I think the lady has made her position clear," he said quietly. "Maybe it is time for you to accept that and move on." For a moment, Nathan thought Leonard might try to start a physical confrontation. The other man's face was red with anger, his fists clenched at his sides. But then Sheriff Daniels emerged from his office, drawn by the commotion. "Is there a problem here?" the sheriff asked, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. Leonard straightened his jacket and forced his features into a more neutral expression. "No problem, Sheriff. I was just leaving." He turned back to Katherine one last time. "You are going to regret this, Katherine. When you are struggling to survive, remember that you had a chance at a good life and threw it away." With that, he stalked off toward the hotel, his posture rigid with barely contained fury. Katherine sagged slightly, as if the confrontation had taken all her strength. Nathan reached out to steady her and she grabbed his arm gratefully. "Thank you," she whispered. "Again." Sheriff Daniels looked between them, his expression knowing. "Miss Thompson, why do not you come inside and sit down for a minute? You look like you could use some water." Katherine allowed herself to be led into the sheriff's office. Nathan followed, unable to leave even though he knew he probably should. Inside, the sheriff poured 3 cups of water from a pitcher and gestured for them to sit. "Now," Daniels said, settling into his chair. "Do you want to tell me what is going on, Miss Thompson? I thought you were getting married in Silver City." Katherine took a long drink of water before answering. "I thought I was too," she said quietly. "But when I arrived and saw Leonard again, saw the house he had prepared for us, I realized I could not do it. I could not marry a man I did not love just because it was convenient or expected." "What changed your mind?" the sheriff asked gently. Katherine glanced at Nathan, then away. "Being stranded in the desert gave me time to think. About my life, about what I really wanted. And then when Mr. Sullivan helped me, when he sacrificed his own comfort and safety for mine without expecting anything in return, I realized what real goodness looked like. Leonard is not a bad man, but he is not a good man either. He saw me as an acquisition, something to possess and display. I could not spend my life with someone who saw me that way." Nathan felt his chest tighten at her words. He wanted to say something, but his throat felt too tight to speak. Sheriff Daniels nodded slowly. "I understand, but what will you do now? Do you have family you can go to?" Katherine shook her head. My father was my only close family. I have some distant cousins back east, but we have never been close. I have a little money saved, enough to get by for a few months if I am careful. I thought I might stay in Hachita for a while, see if I can find work. What kind of work can you do? Daniels asked practically. I can sew very well. I could take in mending or make clothes. I can also read and write, and I am good with numbers. My father taught me to keep his books before he died. The sheriff considered this. There might be opportunities for you here. The schoolteacher position is currently vacant and the town council has been looking for someone. You would need to be tested, of course, but if you are as educated as you say, you should not have any trouble. Catherine's face brightened. That would be wonderful. I love children, and I have always wanted to teach. I will speak to the council on Monday, Daniels promised. In the meantime, you will need a place to stay. Mrs. Chen at the hotel is reasonable, and I am sure we can work something out. They talked for a few more minutes, making plans and discussing practicalities. Throughout the conversation, Nathan remained quiet, his mind racing. He knew he should leave, should get back on the trail and let Katherine build her new life. But the thought of riding away from her again felt impossibly painful. Finally, Katherine turned to him. Mr. Sullivan, you have been very quiet. Are you all right? Nathan cleared his throat. I am fine, Miss Thompson. Just thinking. About what? She asked softly. Nathan looked at her, at the hope and uncertainty in her blue eyes, and made a decision. About whether Hachita might need a new ranch hand. I was planning to move on, but I am starting to think this town has more to offer than I realized. Katherine's face transformed with a smile that made Nathan's heart skip a beat. I think that would be wonderful, she said. I mean, it would be good to have a familiar face around. Someone I can count on as a friend. A friend, Nathan repeated, and though the word felt insufficient for what he was beginning to feel, he accepted it for now. Yes, I would like that very much. Over the next few weeks, both Nathan and Katherine settled into life in Hachita. Katherine took the teaching position after passing the council's tests with flying colors, and moved into a small house near the schoolhouse that came with the job. Nathan found steady work at the Double R Ranch, owned by a gruff but fair man named Robert Reynolds, and took a room in the bunkhouse with the other hands. They saw each other regularly, always in public settings and always carefully proper. Nathan would tip his hat when he rode past the schoolhouse, and Katherine would wave from the window. On Sundays, they sat in the same church, though carefully separated by several pews. When they met on the street, they would stop and talk about safe, neutral topics like the weather or town events. But beneath the surface of their polite friendship, something deeper was growing. Nathan found himself looking for excuses to be in town, to catch a glimpse of Katherine walking to the general store or sitting on her porch in the evening. Katherine, for her part, seemed to light up whenever Nathan appeared, her whole demeanor becoming more animated and joyful. It was Robert Reynolds who finally called Nathan out on it. They were mending fence on a hot afternoon in May when the ranch owner stopped working and looked at Nathan directly. You planning to court that schoolteacher, or are you just going to pine after her until you both die of old age? Robert asked bluntly. Nathan hammered in another post, avoiding his boss's eyes. I do not know what you mean. The hell you do not, Robert said. Every hand on this ranch knows you are sweet on Katherine Thompson. Half the town knows it. The only question is what you are going to do about it. Nathan set down his hammer and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It is complicated. She just ended an engagement. She probably needs time before considering another relationship. It has been 6 weeks, Robert pointed out. And from what I hear, she was never really in that relationship to begin with. Her father arranged it without much input from her. She might not feel the same way about me, Nathan argued, though even he could hear how weak it sounded. Robert laughed. Boy, I have been married for 25 years. I know what it looks like when a woman is interested in a man. That teacher has eyes for no one but you. The question is whether you are brave enough to do something about it. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I am just a ranch hand. I do not have much to offer her. No land of my own, no real prospects. She deserves better than that. What she deserves is a man who treats her right and makes her happy, Robert said firmly. From what I have seen, you do both those things. The rest is just details you can work out together. He paused, then added, besides, I have been thinking about expanding the ranch. I could use a foreman, someone I trust to help run things. The job comes with better pay and a small house on the property. If you are interested. Nathan stared at his boss in surprise. You are offering me the foreman position. I am, Robert confirmed. You are a hard worker, you are honest, and the men respect you. You have only been here a short while, but I am a good judge of character. I think you would do well in the role. I do not know what to say, Nathan admitted. Say yes to the job, and then go ask that schoolteacher if you can court her proper, Robert said. Life is too short to waste time when you have found someone special. That evening, after cleaning up from work, Nathan rode into town with a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. He knew exactly where he would find Katherine. On Friday evenings, she always sat on her porch grading papers and enjoying the cooler air. Sure enough, as he approached her small house, he could see her silhouetted in the lamplight, bent over a stack of papers with a pencil in her hand. She looked up at the sound of Rosie's hooves and stood, a smile already forming on her lips. Mr. Sullivan, she called out, this is a pleasant surprise. Nathan dismounted and tied Rosie to the fence post. He removed his hat and climbed the 3 steps to her porch, his heart beating faster than it had any right to. Miss Thompson, I was wondering if I could speak with you for a few minutes. Of course, Katherine said, setting down her papers. Please sit down. Can I get you some lemonade? I made some fresh this afternoon. That would be nice. Thank you, Nathan said, taking one of the 2 chairs on the porch. Katherine disappeared inside and returned a moment later with 2 glasses of lemonade. She handed one to Nathan and settled into the other chair, looking at him expectantly. What did you want to talk about? Nathan took a drink of lemonade, gathering his courage. I have been offered a promotion at the ranch, foreman position with a house and better pay. Katherine's face lit up. Nathan, that is wonderful news. Congratulations. You must be very pleased. It was the first time she had called him by his first name, and Nathan felt warmth spread through his chest at the sound of it. Thank you. I am pleased, but that is not really what I wanted to talk to you about. Katherine tilted her head, curious. No, then what is it? Nathan set down his glass and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Katherine, I need to be honest with you about something. These past weeks, getting to know you, spending time with you, it has been the best part of my life. You are smart and brave and kind, and when I am with you, I feel like I am the man I always wanted to be but never quite managed. Katherine's breath caught, and her eyes grew wide. Nathan, please let me finish, Nathan said gently. I know you just ended an engagement. I know you probably need time to figure out what you want for your life. But I need you to know that I care for you. More than care for you. I am falling in love with you, Katherine Thompson, and if you think there might be even a chance that someday you could feel the same way, I would like permission to court you properly. For a long moment, Katherine just stared at him, her expression unreadable. Nathan's heart sank. He had pushed too hard, too fast. He was about to apologize and leave when Katherine laughed, a sound of pure joy that rang out in the evening air. Oh, Nathan, she said, reaching out to take his hands in hers. I do not need time. I already know how I feel. I have known since the day you gave me your horse in the desert, since you sacrificed your own safety for a stranger. You showed me what a good man looks like, what love should look like. Not possession or convenience, but genuine care and respect. Nathan felt like he could barely breathe. Are you saying, I am saying yes, Katherine interrupted, her eyes shining with tears. Yes, you can court me. Yes, I feel the same way. Yes to everything. Nathan stood, pulling Katherine up with him. They stood facing each other, hands still clasped, and Nathan thought he had never seen anything more beautiful than Katherine Thompson in that moment, with lamplight in her hair and love in her eyes. May I kiss you? He asked softly. I think I might die if you do not, Katherine replied with a watery laugh. Nathan leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. But Katherine rose on her toes to meet him, and when their lips finally touched, Nathan felt like everything in his life had suddenly made sense. The kiss was gentle and sweet and full of promise, and when they finally broke apart, both of them were smiling. I have wanted to do that since the moment I saw you standing beside that broken stagecoach, Nathan admitted. Katherine laughed and swatted his arm playfully. You did not even know me then. I knew enough, Nathan said. I knew you were strong and brave and determined. I knew you were someone special. They sat back down, this time with their chairs pulled close together, hands still intertwined. They talked long into the night, sharing stories about their pasts and dreams for the future. Katherine told him about growing up with her father, a merchant who had lost everything to bad investments and debt, about how she had learned to be self-sufficient out of necessity. Nathan told her about his own childhood, about parents who had died young and a series of odd jobs that had eventually led him to ranch work. I never really had a place that felt like home, Nathan confessed. I was always just passing through, always temporary. And now? Katherine asked softly. Nathan looked at her, at the house behind her that was small but cozy, at the town spreading out around them peaceful and welcoming. Now I think I might have found it, he said. The courtship that followed was the subject of much happy gossip in Hatchita. Nathan called on Katherine 3 evenings a week, always properly chaperoned by neighbors or with their time spent in public spaces. On Sundays after church, they would take walks around the town, talking and laughing and slowly building a foundation for their future. Nathan moved into the foreman's house at the Double R Ranch, a small but sturdy building that he immediately began fixing up. He repaired the roof, painted the walls, and built new furniture for the rooms. Katherine came to visit several times, always with Mrs. Chen or another woman from town as chaperone, and gave him advice on colors and arrangements. You are making it very nice, Katherine said during one visit in July. It will be a wonderful home for you. For us, Nathan corrected gently. If you will have me, that is. Eventually, when you are ready. Katherine blushed beautifully. I think I will be ready sooner than you might expect. I have already wasted so much time preparing for a marriage I did not want. I do not want to waste any more time now that I have found the marriage I do want. They were married in late September, in a simple ceremony at the Hatchita church. Katherine wore a new dress she had made herself, ivory silk with lace at the collar and cuffs. Nathan wore his best suit, purchased specially for the occasion. The whole town turned out for the wedding, filling the church to capacity. Sheriff Daniels walked Katherine down the aisle, a gesture that made them both tear up with its significance. Robert Reynolds stood as Nathan's best man, while Mrs. Chen served as Katherine's matron of honor. The ceremony was short but heartfelt, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Katherine with such tenderness that several people in the congregation wiped away tears. The reception was held at the hotel, with food and dancing that lasted long into the night. Nathan and Katherine danced together, lost in their own world, oblivious to the celebrations around them. When they finally left to go to their new home, the whole town lined up to throw rice and wish them well. The house Nathan had prepared was warm and welcoming, lit by candles and filled with flowers. He carried Katherine over the threshold and she laughed with pure happiness. Setting her down gently, Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Katherine Sullivan," he said. "I will love you for the rest of my life and beyond." "I love you too, Nathan," Katherine replied. "Thank you for being exactly the man I needed. Thank you for sacrificing for a stranger and giving me a chance at real happiness." "You are not a stranger anymore," Nathan said, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "You are my wife, my partner, my home." That night, as they lay together in their marriage bed, Katherine traced patterns on Nathan's chest and said softly, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not ridden past that broken stagecoach, if you had taken a different road that day?" Nathan tightened his arms around her. "I try not to. The thought of a world where I never met you is too terrible to consider." "I think about it sometimes," Katherine admitted. "I would have married Leonard, been miserable, never known what real love felt like. It frightens me how close I came to throwing my life away." "But you did not," Nathan reminded her. "You were brave enough to change your path, even when it was hard. That is one of the things I love most about you." Katherine lifted her head to look at him. "We saved each other, I think. You saved me in the desert, and I saved you from a life of wandering. We gave each other a home." "Yes," Nathan agreed, kissing her again. "We did." Their first year of marriage was full of joy and adjustment. Katherine continued teaching, becoming beloved by her students and their parents. Nathan thrived in his new role as foreman, helping Robert expand the ranch and proving himself an excellent manager. Together, they made their little house into a true home, filled with laughter and love. In the summer of 1884, Katherine discovered she was pregnant. Nathan was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and attentive. He would not let her lift anything heavy and insisted she rest more, though Katherine laughingly assured him she was perfectly healthy and capable of continuing her normal activities. "I am growing a baby, not recovering from an illness," she told him one evening when he tried to carry her to bed. "I know, but I want to take care of you," Nathan said. "You are the most precious thing in my life, you and our child." Katherine softened at his words. "I know you do, and I love you for it. But you have to let me live my life, Nathan. I am not fragile." They compromised, with Katherine agreeing to reduce her teaching hours in the final months of her pregnancy and Nathan agreeing to stop treating her like she might break at any moment. As her belly grew, so did their excitement. They prepared a nursery in what had been a spare room, painting it cheerful yellow and filling it with furniture Nathan built with his own hands. Their son was born in March of 1885, a healthy baby with Nathan's dark hair and Katherine's blue eyes. They named him William Robert Sullivan, after Katherine's father and Nathan's boss, who had become like a father figure to him. Billy, as they called him, was a good baby who rarely cried and seemed content to watch the world around him with wide, curious eyes. Nathan was a devoted father, coming home from the ranch every day eager to hold his son and help Katherine with whatever needed doing. He would rock Billy to sleep while singing old cowboy songs in his deep voice, and Katherine would watch them with a heart so full of love she sometimes thought it might burst. "This is what I always wanted," she told Nathan one night as they lay in bed with Billy sleeping peacefully in his cradle nearby. "A family built on love, not obligation. A husband who is truly my partner. A home that is filled with happiness." "Me too," Nathan said, pulling her close. though I did not know it until I met you. You taught me what it means to truly love someone, Katherine. You taught me what home feels like." As the years passed, their family grew. A daughter, Emma Grace, was born in 1887, followed by another son, Thomas James, in 1889. The house Nathan had built was expanded to accommodate their growing family, with Nathan and the ranch hands adding on rooms and a larger kitchen. Katherine eventually stopped teaching to focus on raising their children, though she tutored several students privately and was active in the town's educational committee. Nathan was made a partner in the Double R Ranch when Robert Reynolds decided to semi-retire, giving Nathan a real stake in the land he worked. They faced challenges, of course. There were droughts that threatened the ranch and illnesses that kept them up at night with sick children. There were arguments and misunderstandings, moments when they frustrated each other or failed to communicate well. But through it all, their love remained strong, built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1893, Nathan surprised Katherine with a gift. It was a painting, commissioned from a traveling artist, showing a man on horseback meeting a woman in a white dress beside a broken stagecoach in the desert. "Where did you find this?" Katherine asked, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the image of the day they had met. "I described it to the artist and had him create it from my memory," Nathan explained. "I wanted us to always remember where we started. How a broken-down stagecoach and a sacrifice for a stranger led to the greatest love of my life." Katherine set down the painting and threw her arms around her husband. "I love you so much, Nathan Sullivan, more today than yesterday and less than tomorrow." "That is quite a lot of love," Nathan said with a smile, holding her tight. "You deserve every bit of it and more," Katherine assured him. "You sacrificed for a stranger when you did not have to, and you gave me not just your horse, but your heart, your life, your everything. How could I not love you more with each passing day?" Their children grew up hearing the story of how their parents met, of their father's selfless act and their mother's courage in choosing love over security. Billy became a rancher like his father, eventually taking over management of the Double R. Emma became a teacher like her mother, opening a school in a nearby town. Thomas, the youngest, became a lawyer and advocate for fair treatment of ranch workers. As Nathan and Katherine grew older, they remained deeply devoted to each other. They would sit on their porch in the evenings, hands clasped, watching the sun set over the New Mexico landscape. Katherine's hair turned silver, and Nathan's face became weathered and lined, but to each other, they were always as beautiful as that first day in the desert. "You have any regrets?" Katherine asked Nathan one evening when they were both in their 60s. Nathan considered the question seriously. "I regret that we did not have more time," he said finally. "No matter how many years we get, it will never be enough. But regrets about my choices, about marrying you and building this life, not a single one." "Good," Katherine said, squeezing his hand. "Because I have none either. You were my salvation, Nathan. My proof that good men exist, that sacrificial love is real, that choosing your own path can lead to happiness." "You were mine too," Nathan said. "You gave me a reason to stop wandering. You showed me that a simple ranch hand could build something lasting and beautiful. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself." They lived well into their 70s, both of them, a blessing in a time when life expectancy was much shorter. They saw their grandchildren born and even met a few great-grandchildren. The house Nathan had built and expanded over the years was always filled with family, with love, with the sound of multiple generations gathered together. Nathan died peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1918, Katherine beside him as she had been for more than 30 years. His last words to her were simple: Thank you for letting me love you." Katherine grieved deeply, but not bitterly. She knew how lucky she had been to find such a love, to build such a life. She lived another 3 years, spending them surrounded by her children and grandchildren, telling and retelling the story of how their love began with a sacrifice in the desert. On a warm September morning in 1921, Katherine passed away in the same bed she had shared with Nathan for so many years. Her children found her with a peaceful smile on her face and something clutched in her hand. When they gently opened her fingers, they discovered it was the lace handkerchief she had given Nathan on that long-ago day, carefully preserved for almost 40 years, a token of a stranger's sacrifice that had led to a lifetime of love. They were buried side by side in the Hachita cemetery, their headstones simple but meaningful. Nathan's read, "Loving husband and father who taught us the meaning of sacrifice." Katherine's read, "Beloved wife and mother who taught us the courage to choose love." Between them, placed by their children, was a small brass plaque that read, "Here lie two souls who found each other in the desert and built a life in the promised land." The story of Nathan and Katherine Sullivan became a beloved piece of Hachita history, passed down through generations. The painting Nathan had commissioned hung in the town hall for years, a reminder of how a single act of kindness could change lives, how love could grow from the most unexpected moments, how two strangers could become soulmates. Their descendants continued to thrive in New Mexico and beyond, carrying with them the values Nathan and Katherine had instilled: the importance of sacrifice for others, the courage to choose your own path, the power of love built on respect and genuine affection. The little house that Nathan had built and expanded was preserved by the family, becoming a gathering place for reunions and celebrations, a physical reminder of what one cowboy and one stranded bride had created together. The Double R Ranch continued to operate, eventually passing to Billy's children and then to his grandchildren. They kept the name even after the Reynolds family was no longer involved, honoring both Robert Reynolds, who had given Nathan his chance, and Nathan himself, who had made the ranch prosper. Pictures of Nathan and Katherine hung in the ranch office, presiding over business meetings and reminding everyone of the legacy they represented. In town, the school where Katherine had taught was renamed in her honor. The Katherine Sullivan Elementary School served children for generations, with a portrait of Katherine in the main hallway. Teachers would tell students about the brave woman who had chosen to make her own way in the world, who had valued education and learning, who had shown that women could be strong and independent while also being loving partners and devoted mothers. The story of how Nathan gave his horse to a stranded bride became the stuff of local legend, embellished and romanticized over time, but always maintaining its essential truth: that a good man had sacrificed for a stranger, and that stranger had recognized the worth of that sacrifice. It became a story parents told their children about recognizing real goodness when you see it, about having the courage to change your path when you know something is wrong, about how love should feel and look and act. Years turned into decades, decades into a century, and still the story persisted. Historians researching the settlement of New Mexico in the late 19th century would come across the tale and include it in their writings. Romance novelists would use it as inspiration for their stories. Artists would create their own versions of the painting, showing a cowboy and a bride meeting in the desert. The handkerchief that Katherine had given Nathan, which had been clutched in her hand when she died, became a family heirloom. Katherine's daughter Emma had taken possession of it and passed it to her own daughter, who passed it to hers. Each generation of women in the family held it on their wedding day, a tangible link to the love story that had started it all. The lace was fragile now, yellowed with age, but carefully preserved and deeply treasured. The broader world changed dramatically over the years that followed Nathan and Katherine's deaths. The Wild West they had known vanished, replaced by paved roads and automobiles. New Mexico achieved statehood in 1912, becoming a full part of the nation rather than a territory. World wars were fought, technologies advanced, social norms shifted dramatically. But in Hatchita, in that small corner of New Mexico, the story of Nathan and Katherine remained constant. It represented something timeless: the power of sacrifice, the importance of choosing love over convenience, the beauty of two souls finding each other against all odds. In a world that often felt cold and transactional, their story reminded people that goodness still existed, that romance was real, that true love was worth waiting for and fighting for. On the 100th anniversary of their first meeting in 1983, the town of Hatchita held a special celebration. Descendants of Nathan and Katherine came from all over the country to participate. The mayor gave a speech about the values the couple had represented, and how those values were still relevant in the modern world. A historical marker was placed at the approximate spot where Nathan had encountered the broken-down stagecoach, telling the story for passers-by and tourists. The celebration concluded with a ceremony at their gravesite, where flowers were laid and stories were shared. Great-great-grandchildren who had never met Nathan and Katherine spoke about how their legacy had shaped the family, how the story of their meeting had been told and retold until it became part of each descendant's identity. "They taught us that love is a choice," one great-great-granddaughter said in her speech. "Not just the choice to marry someone, but the daily choice to sacrifice for them, to put their needs alongside your own, to build something together." Grandmother Katherine chose to break off an engagement that was wrong for her, even though it meant giving up financial security. Grandfather Nathan chose to give his horse to a stranger, even though it meant risking his own safety. And then they chose each other, every day, for more than 30 years. That is the legacy they left us: the courage to make hard choices and the commitment to honor those choices. The celebration lasted all weekend, with barbecues and dances, with tours of the preserved house and visits to the school bearing Katherine's name. The oldest living descendant, Billy's daughter, who was now 95 years old, spent hours telling stories to the younger generations, keeping the memory alive and vibrant. "I remember them both," she told a group of enthralled great-great-grandchildren. "I was young when Grandfather Nathan died, but I remember his hands, so big and work-worn, being incredibly gentle when he held me. And Grandmother Katherine lived until I was almost 8. She used to sit me on her lap and tell me about the day she met Grandfather, about how scared she had been in the desert, and how he had appeared like an answer to a prayer. She said she knew immediately that he was someone special, someone good in a way that was rare and precious." The young children listened with wide eyes, making the connection between the weathered photographs they had seen and the flesh and blood people their elder described. It made the story real in a way that reading about it never quite could, hearing it from someone who had actually known Nathan and Katherine, who had felt their love firsthand. As the sun set on the final day of the celebration, the descendants gathered one last time at the gravesite. They formed a circle around the 2 headstones, holding hands, and sang old hymns that Nathan and Katherine would have recognized. It was a moment of connection across time, a bridge between past and present, a promise that the legacy would continue. In the years that followed, the story continued to be told and retold. New generations discovered it, were inspired by it, used it as a template for their own relationships. Young people in the family would bring their sweethearts to see the grave, to visit the house, to stand at the historical marker and imagine that long-ago day in the desert. The values Nathan and Katherine had lived by, sacrifice and courage and genuine love, remained relevant even as the world continued to change. In an age of instant gratification and easy divorce, their story reminded people that real love required work and commitment. In a time when people often married for status or money, their example showed that marrying for love was not naive or foolish, but actually the wisest choice. The painting Nathan had commissioned, which had hung in the town hall for so many years, was eventually moved to a small museum in Hachita dedicated to local history. It hung in a place of honor, with a detailed placard explaining the story behind it. Tourists would stop to read the tale, would look at the image of the cowboy and the bride in the desert, and would walk away with smiles on their faces. "We need more stories like that," one visitor wrote in the museum's guest book. Stories that remind us that good people exist, that love is real, that sacrifice matters. Thank you for preserving this piece of history. And so the story lived on, passed down through generations, preserved in museums and family gatherings and local lore. Nathan Sullivan, the cowboy who gave his horse to a stranger. Katherine Thompson Sullivan, the bride who recognized a good man when she saw one and had the courage to choose him. Two people who met by chance in the New Mexico desert and built a love that lasted a lifetime and inspired countless others. Their house still stood in the 21st century, carefully maintained by the family and occasionally opened for tours. People would walk through the rooms Nathan had built and expanded, would see the nursery where Billy and Emma and Thomas had slept, would stand on the porch where Nathan and Katherine had spent so many evenings watching the sunset. They would leave with a sense of having touched something real and lasting, something that transcended the ordinary. The story of Nathan and Katherine Sullivan was not just a tale of romance, though it certainly was that. It was a story about recognizing worth, about making sacrifices, about having the courage to choose your own path. It was about how a single moment, a single decision, could change the entire course of a life. It was about how love, real love, was built not on grand gestures alone but on daily choices to honor and cherish another person. In the end, that was the true legacy Nathan and Katherine left behind. Not just their descendants, numerous though they were, but the example of how to love well. They had shown that love was not about possession or convenience, not about social status or financial security, but about genuine care and respect and partnership. They had proven that it was possible to build something lasting and beautiful. That sacrifice for another person was never wasted. That choosing love over fear was always the right decision. The desert where they had first met remained much as it had been in 1883, largely unchanged by the passage of time. The road was paved now, and the traffic was motorized rather than horse-drawn, but the landscape itself endured. Sometimes, on quiet mornings when the sun was just rising, it was not hard to imagine a cowboy on horseback coming across a stranded bride beside a broken stagecoach, to imagine the moment when their eyes first met and something shifted in the universe. That moment, captured in paint and preserved in story, had rippled out through time, affecting hundreds of lives, inspiring countless people. It was a reminder that our choices matter, that how we treat strangers matters, that being willing to sacrifice for others matters. Nathan had given his horse to Katherine when he did not have to, when it would have been easier to ride on by. That single act of goodness had led to a lifetime of love, a family that spanned generations, and a legacy that would endure. And so the story ended, but also did not end. It lived on in the hearts and minds of those who heard it, in the choices people made because of it, in the love stories it inspired. Nathan and Katherine Sullivan had lived and loved and died, but what they had created together, the example they had set, and the family they had built, continued to thrive and grow. Somewhere in New Mexico, in a small town called Hachita, two headstones stood side by side in a cemetery, marking the resting place of a cowboy and his bride. The desert wind blew across them as it had for more than a century, carrying with it the whisper of a love story that began with a sacrifice and ended with a legacy that would never truly die.